Right, in this part we're going to talk about fixing our bro surfer dude to the hatch cover. It's an important section. It has a few considerations that one has to take into account. Just to mention the manufacturing of the bro surfer dude, I've decided not to do that in this building and RC Surfboard series, just because there's a lot that goes into manufacturing one of these flexible bro dudes, and from making a mold to the lamination to making a mold for the head, etc. So we're gonna do a separate series for that. But just to mention, the simplest way to go about making a surfer dude is just to carve it out of some solid foam, with the same foam as you use for your board. Obviously strengthening it with layers of fiberglass and epoxy. Try to keep it as light as possible. You don't want your bro to weigh much more than, let's say, 250 grams in a board size like this. You want to try to limit your centrifugal weight. So I mean, if he's heavy and you go around, you take a sharp turn, you don't want your bro falling over. So keep it light. You obviously want to try and keep it as big as possible for the scale and the presence on the water. But yeah, that's up to you. There's lots of ways you can go about building a bro. I've invested a lot of time in this development of this bro, and hopefully I'll be able to share that with you sometime in a future building a bro dude series. But for now, let's look at the fundamentals of how we fix our bro onto the hatch cover, and how the bro actually assists in righting the board before the weight of the board takes over. Right, so now that we have our specific weight molded into the board in the ideal position, the next step we need to do is actually take our bro and bond it securely, or position it securely, however you choose to fix it, onto the actual hatch cover. Now, once again, that's not as simple as just choosing where it needs to go. We have a few specifics that we need to consider when we're doing this. The first one would be just looking at the bro from tail to nose of the board. You kind of want your bro to be as close, once again, sort of over your center of gravity, or your pivot point of your board, remembering that for the best part of it, about 2/3 of your board is a running surface. If you have your bro set too far back, the air pressure or any pressure on your bro is going to be pushing your tail down. Try and get your bro kind of centered, stance sort of somewhere centered over sort of 40% from the tail, like on the CG of the board. That's ideal from tail to nose. But what's more important is actually in the center line of the board, because bro's primary function, apart from looking like the hottest surfer on the beach, is to actually be able to initiate the rotation of the board when we self-righting, and this is where the importance of his positioning comes into being. What we have to ensure when we position our bro is that it has an off-center buoyancy inclination. If our bro is positioned sort of dead center in its buoyancy to the board, perpendicular to the board, if the board's upside down and the bro has no initiative to want to rotate the board, then your board's just going to sit upside down like this. Some people call it sitting turtle, but really it's not going to go anywhere. You need quite a big fat bro to lift this board to plonk it out of the water. So what you need to do when you position your bro is make sure that a portion of your bro is set off the perpendicular center line to the surface of the board, so that when the board's upside down, you can see in this case most of bro is looking from the tail is to the left of the board, which would rotate the board round like this every time. Every time it's upside down, it would rotate the board round. If the board was sort of at this position over here, the board would come around here. But for the most of it, as long as this board's perpendicular, this board will rotate clockwise from the tail round like that, and that's what we want. I've chosen in the design of my bro to have it rotate clockwise as often as possible, mainly due to the rotation of the prop. So when it comes up, I can really speed it up by when I throttle, the prop also gives extra rotation, I can be on my way. If the board naturally rotated anti-clockwise and I accelerated, I'd almost be fighting my rotation as I accelerate, because the board would tend to want to fight down like that. So just remember that when you design your bro, try and get your board to rotate clockwise from the tail, so that as it's righting itself, if you're on the throttle, it'll actually initiate it, and you'd be on your way a lot quicker. The righting itself from the side, especially in the wind. One more point to mention about Bro is another dynamic feature. I've already mentioned to you about the tab we have on the left hand side of the bifin, which helps with the rotational torque of the prop. The prop turning counterclockwise has a desire to trim the board clockwise from the tails. So partly to help neutralize that, we have this little trim tab on the bifin to put it down. But another dynamic we can take advantage of is wind resistance, and often you'll find when you're charging down a wave face, you're going to have wind coming up the wave face, which is quite powerful. And if your Bro is standing in this position, you've got the wind pushing against his chest here, it's going to help rotate the board counterclockwise, fighting that prop torque. Because often when you're flying down the wave of a face, you're going to be really stabbing the gas, trying to make a section, and have more emphasized torque in the board the more you accelerate. So the faster you go, obviously the more wind speed you're going to have pushing, and in essence we're going to have that wind resistance pushing on Bro and righting the board. So just consider that in the design of your Bro. Often I have people asking me to build a goofy footer, and that's all well and good, but at the same time, if you have a goofy footer, you're actually going to be in this, if you have a goofy footer in this stance and design, you're going to have that wind resistant actually aiding that torque roll of the board. So that's why I like a Bro the way he is, in his dynamic effect, helping to keep the board flat on the water surface rather than being torqued over. Right, so to do this setup properly, the first thing we've got to ensure is that we have all our equipment inside our housing. We've got our battery, we've got our ESC, we've got our servo, we've got our motor and jacket, we've got our receiver, drive shafts in, couplings there. We want to make sure that all the necessary weight is in the board. Everything is just placed in here temporarily. We've still got to do the complete installation, but we just want to make sure that when our hatch cover is on and we position our Bro, that the righting action is going to function as it would be when the board is ready to surf. Alright, so we've positioned our Bro on the hatch cover, making sure we can get to all the null nuts comfortably. Got him set up over our CG, centered. So we're ready to go ahead and tack Bro in place. Alright, so just with a hot gun, we're just going to put some glue at the base of the Bro. So you can see Bro's nice and secure to the hatch cover, just temporarily, and we can go down now and put him in the water and see if he's able to do his thing by self-righting. Okay, so we'll see here from a completely flat board. The board should rotate clockwise due to the position of Bro. Coming up, nice. And that's because of Bro being his physical buoyancy being more to the one side. Also see if I lie the board like this, you can see the rotational axis line a little bit deeper at the back because there's less buoyancy than in the front here, but in essence that rotational line is travelling through the centre of the board. If I release Bro's head, the board will have an immediate tendency to right itself. Upside down, rotating around clockwise. Board on nicely. We have the rotational axis line of the water. It's a little bit touch high in the front, just because of the bigger volume of board in the front. If I let go, you can see how the board rights itself. It's righting itself from a line stance. Coming clockwise, happy with that. Right, so once we are completed with our test and we're happy with the righting function of the board, We've got our positions tacked in place. It's time to take a pencil and scribe a good solid line around each of the bases. Okay, once we've got our base positions marked, we can just wiggle, release. See, we have our base marked out. We're now going to tape over that before gluing. So once we got our hatch taped up and we got our bro bases marked out, just take a blade, just cut around with a small grinding disc. We're going to grind away the top layer of the hatch so that we've got a good bonding surface to work with. Right, so this grinding away of the layer into the actual depth of the glass is absolute key to a good bond between the bro footpad and the hatch cover. If you had to just bond onto this surface here, the chances are you'd actually rip that layer of glass off. So take the time to grind away and get a real good surface to bond onto. A little acetone wipe down. Using the 2-part slow curing epoxy Epidermic 372. Right, so looking closely, you can see how the epoxy is oozed out around the base of the feet. You're just going to spend some time now carefully scooping that away. Right, so there we have our bros bonded to the board. No mess, no fuss. We'll clean up the small detail in the morning, and then it's time for spit and polishing.